it was Sid that got us our first into Glastonbury Festival, and I think it was 1988. And Rainbow Circle was part of what was then quite a small greenfield area. Um, and we presented workshops, and we did chanting, and we had fires, and just generally contributed towards the atmosphere. There were people who had stalls and who sold stuff, but all this came through Sid's relationship with Michaelidis. And after a couple of years, we started to take on much more focused responsibility. One year we had the triangular field, which is now the kids' field, and we had a whole Rainbow Circle experience there, with every different camp was represented, and we presented workshops, full-on workshops from morning to night every day. And then the next year after that, we had East Holts. And the year after that, we had East and West Holts. Now, the year that we had East and West Holts, that was quite a challenge. It was a big area to fill. And for one reason or another, it wasn't that easy to fill. I don't really know why. I was doing the astrology and healing and earth mysteries contact and content, and that all seemed to be going fine. And then there was a flurry that happened. Linda, whom I knew from astrology and from the Rainbow Circle, I'm not sure whether she was in Rainbow Circle at that stage, maybe not, but I knew her from the astrology scene in London. And she came up and was very distraught, saying that all their tickets, that's the Hammersmith posse, all their tickets have been cancelled. And they didn't have anywhere to go, and they didn't know how to get in. And we had all these possible spaces. So we welcomed them with open arms. And that was the Hammersmith posse complete. And it included Al and his flying taxi. The flying taxi was the most amazing trip. Okay, the taxi went by a motor, but it had, Alan had made these wings, and these wings went up and down as the taxi drove along the field. It would look like the taxi was flying. It was the most incredible sight. Yeah, so they were part of it, and also they had connection with the people who did the swans. So they didn't come to be in the Rainbow Circle field, but the swan people were also amazing in Glastonbury. They actually lived just up the road from the place in North Wales in Gilbach, where we had originally planned the Oak Dragon camps. And we got to know them quite well, although I'm afraid I don't remember what their names were right at this moment. Huh? Lindsay. Yes, Lindsay. And what was her guy's name?
I don't remember.
No, it was Lindsay, that's right.
I remember they were famous for their huge fire puppets.
Yes, the fire puppets. I think that came after the swans, did it? Yeah, I think so. Because the swans did sort of disappear. So I guess they turned their energy into fire puppets. They were amazing, those fire puppets. Yeah. So anyway, there we were doing East and West Holts, and that's how we drew Linda and the Hammersmith posse into the camps. And they became very vocal because they were already a pretty established group. I had visited them, I remember now, visited them out in Claremont Road in London, where there was an amazing squats scenario there with big communal back gardens, and we used to play out there. I remember, one time when Suze and Alan, we called him Alan Dogend, Alan of the Flying Taxi, where they did a production of Macbeth. It was stunningly funny and amazing. So Rainbow Circle had done the kids' field, well, what turned into the kids' field, triangular field. We'd done East Holts, we'd done East and West Holts. And so anyway, when the split happened with the Rainbow Circle and we weren't going to be working together anymore, it was obvious that we weren't either of us, either side, was going to be able to run a complete field or a complete anything really. And so when we went then to see Mike Leavis, to see what he wanted in the way for us to be doing. And it was, I think Sid made his own arrangement with Michael. And that arrangement was that, I don't know for how long, but he and Jules had free pass, at least for the next year. I don't know about after that. And then me and Fred and probably Tara, possibly Hannah, we're not really quite sure which one it was. Both of them seem to remember it, but I know it was me and Fred and one other person. Let's say it was Tara, and we went to see Mike Leavis to see if we could secure some sort of deal to continue to present stuff at Glastonbury Festival. And Michael was very sympathetic. He knew that Sid and I had actually held that energy for a few years. And he also knew that Fred ran a very good vegan cafe, vegetarian, I think it was then. And so in the end of that time that we spent talking with him, he offered a spot to Fred for the Golden Moon Cafe and a spot to me for an astrology spot. And he said, I remember clearly him saying to the other person in the room, you're also into astrology, aren't you? You will be happy if we have an astrology spot. But he actually gave that spot to me. So I ran it as Rainbow Circle Astrologers. Now, this wasn't really where it was at because the astrology group had been going before Rainbow Circle. We actually got together at the beginning of the Oak Dragon camps when I first coordinated the astrology camp. And we were going before Rainbow Circle. And since there were various things that the astrologers just couldn't really get into about the camps. And basically they came to the astrology camps, but apart from Jean Elliott and Linda, there were no other people who came to all the other camps. But I suggested to them that we could still be called Rainbow Circle Astrologers because that would help to advertise the Rainbow Circle. And we needed advertisement, and we could have our leaflets there and give them to people and try and generate some interest in people coming to our camps. Which was why they were called Rainbow Circle Astrologers. But what we did have was a Rainbow Circle sight crew. And in those days, we had a lot of tickets. We had 30 tickets. How about that? And in those 30 tickets, there would be about half of them, a bit more than half, maybe 16, maybe even 20, would be astrologers. But there would also be 4 people who were sight crew and 4 other people who would be overnight security. And we actually, so we had 8 people who were from Rainbow Circle and who got paid. Because when we, at the end of the festival, we found out how much money we made, it all just got divided amongst all the people who were working there. Sarah was really uptight about this because I never asked her, and it was in my gift. That was her problem. It was in my gift to choose who out of the Rainbow Circle people I wanted to have there at Glastonbury Festival as the sight crew and security. Because basically, you know, there were some amazingly good workers in Rainbow Circle, and there were also some amazingly good blaggers. So I wanted to be able to choose who I took with me, and that was who got paid. I mean, when I say who got paid, it was hilarious, really, because, you know, one year we went home with £17 each, and we'd only been working 4 hours a day for 4 days. Apart from bringing it all up and taking it all down and all of that scenario, mind you, we had the sight crew to do that. As astrologers, we didn't have to do that. But as astrologers, we generated the money. And that money was divided and people got some. Sarah couldn't bear that. So that was the origin of the split, really, was when Sarah, after the eclipse camp, when I had organised for all the money to go to Rainbow Circle so that we could get to Devon, which was in the interests of the astrologers because they were going to go to the eclipse. And everybody did it happily enough. After we'd taken out expenses, all the rest of the money went to Rainbow Circle. The next year, when I was in Australia, Sarah did the same thing. And that was the beginning of the split, because the astrologers were outraged, and rightly so. And I couldn't salvage it. I couldn't bring it back. After that happened, it happened. And so that was the beginning of the wheel. More about the wheel. Okay. Well,
So now you're talking about the split of the astrologers from Rainbow Circle.
yes, that's right.
Carry on.
Okay, so now I'm talking about the split of the astrologers from the Rainbow Circle, although that split had already happened, but the split of the astrologers from the Rainbow Circle energy, the Rainbow Circle energy was contained with the sight crew and the security people and other people who managed to get in this way and that way and came and were part of our setup. And that, to me, that was not a problem. Oh, we also had people who cooked food for us. So there would have been, a good 10 people who were not astrologers and who were there to, look after us all. And anyway.
To tell you a bit more about how the wheel came out of that.
Yeah. So what happened when the astrologers decided that they didn't want to be part of this setup anymore? They were not going to see any reward for it whatsoever. I don't know quite how important that was, but and I didn't discover this till later, but Schenker and Linda and Jean Elliott got together and decided to set up the scenario a little bit differently so that Rainbow Circle was not included. And in order to do that, they needed a sight crew. And that was where Chloe and Tina came in. They offered to do the sight crew. And that is what they have been doing ever since. And they've done it extremely efficiently. Yeah. So
Can you just say a little bit more about how the
how the
wheel?
wheel started.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I took a group of astrologers who were not the Rainbow Circle astrologers, and they weren't yet the Wheel of Astrologers, and we were just astrologers, and we went to, I'm not sure if it was the Big Green Gathering or the Green Gathering at that point. I think it was the Green Gathering at that point. But anyway, we went and we did our summer scene there. And then there was a big meeting in a field outside Leicester, I believe, about the whole scenario. And there was a big circle of people who were on the edge of our scene, but they were definitely part of it. And everybody decided that they didn't want to be part of anywhere near Rainbow Circle anymore, and that they wanted to set up a different organization, different group, that were going to call themselves something. And nobody knew what. This was another of those, oh, what shall we call ourselves scenarios. And we went right the way around the circle, and all sorts of different names came up, and eventually we decided on the wheel of astrologers, and that is when the wheel started. And for me, it was a little difficult because Rainbow Circle was not well thought of within that circle, and I had to listen to a lot of very difficult things. And also, I was no longer the person who was putting it all on. But then other things happened, and I moved on from there. I think I worked with Wheel of Astrologers just as a astrologer, not as an organizer, for a couple of years, maybe, I think. But anyway, then I moved on to being part of the ceremony team at Glastonbury, which is where I was until 2022.
And the wheel continued at Glastonbury.
The wheel continued at Glastonbury, yes. The wheel actually became very organised, and it also managed to attract a lot of energy